This is Allison Gross, and welcome back to supposedly Let's Play Savage Empires, but we are still on part 3 of Let's Read the Manual for Savage Empires. This is really kind of starting to get old here. Sorry this is taking so long. In our last episode, the Avatar, the fake Avatar, and his quote friends had wound up in this mysterious place where they had been carried off by a giant pterodactyl and then encountered some of the natives, which, for we can't figure out reasons, include Shamino with amnesia. So, going on from there, the campfire blazed up bright and cheerful, stark contrast to the nighttime darkness surrounding us. I sat by the fire, by Jimmy, who was festooned with bandages torn from Rafkin's shirt. Nearby sat Rafkin, engaged in halting conversation with the natives named Shamino and Aiela. Shamino, the man who wore the face of my old friend Shamino, and Aiela, the woman for whom we'd taken that impromptu ride through the sky, at your insistence, dude. Around us were perhaps 20 male warriors, jungle tribesmen who obeyed every word issued by Aiela. I felt better after devouring a quantity of meat blackened on the fire. No, it wasn't meat from the reptile we'd killed. The super pteranodon, as Rafkin dubbed it. The natives shunned that meat as inedible. They caught many four-legged plant-eaters, creatures which, except for being hoofless, looked like a cross between a tiny horse and a small deer. Rafkin had taken one and looked at a brace of beasts caught by the tribesmen, distractedly declared Hyracotherium, and turned back to his discussion. Jimmy was scribbling down an account of everything that had happened since he'd reached the museum. Fortunately for him, his battered pocket notebook held many blank pages. I had a feeling he'd see them all filled up before we were done here. The natives treated us like honored guests. They were impressed with the way we'd killed the super pteranodon, which baffled by our clothes and language, and were grateful that we'd saved Aiela, obviously a person of importance to them. Rafkin was, to his delight, understood certain words they were speaking, declaring they spoke a variant of a Central American dialect he knew. While darkness gathered, he sat with Aiela and Shamino, and the others set up camp and built a fire. Rafkin eventually moved back over to us. Shamino and Aiela, too, drifted over. Nervously, Rafkin pulled off his glasses and rubbed them with a slightly less than filthy shirt tail. Well, I've learned a few things, he admitted. I've puzzled out a bit more of their dialect and have a slightly more informed idea about what is happening. I, for one, am not at all curious, Jimmy deadpanned. In other words, tell me or you end up flying around on another one of those Tyrannothopters. Fuck. Rafkin smiled. This place is some sort of isolated valley. The natives call it Aodon. It appears to be inhabited by a loose grouping of pre-agrarian tribes. I understand that there is one village built of stone where the people farm, which might indicate a more sophisticated culture than that possessed by our friends here. Anyway, most of these people are members of the Kurak tribe. We will learn about them later. There's a whole section in the manual that talks about the different tribes. The young lady whom we assisted is Aiela, the daughter of their chief, in effect their princess. I glanced up at Aiela, found that she was already staring at me. Oh, God. Though startled by the sudden contact, she did not turn away. Rafkin continued, the other fellow, Shamino, was a member of an upland clan called the Barako. He wasn't born among them. They found him wandering the mountains amnesiac a few months ago. The name you keep saying, Shamino, it agitates him, but he can't remember it. He does say that he knows you from somewhere, that he has never seen you before. I grinned. That doesn't exactly make sense, does it? Rather, it obviously confuses him. Anyway, Aiela says she has had several dreams lately, dreams where she has been in terrible danger from some sort of insect-like creature who should appear but a mighty strange warrior. Oops, let me correct. A strange mighty warrior who saves her. A warrior with your face. At any rate, Aiela appears to be accorded special warrior status within her tribe and hunts on her own. She says that yesterday she was ambushed by warriors from another tribe, the Urali, and that their chieftain, a strong man she calls Dardan the Huge, decided she was the woman for him. She managed to get clear of Dardan and took a long route to get back to her village without meeting him again. That's when she was attacked by the creature I'm calling a super pteranodon, a marvelous species, several times as large as Quetzalcoatlus. Fully articulated wings, not just a glider. He shook his head wonderingly. You know the rest. Shamino, who's a friend of the tribe, and several of her tribesmen have been searching for her since yesterday. His voice became more animated. According to these people, the super pteranodon is only the tip of the primordial iceberg. They talk about many enormous reptiles to be found in the valley. I have to see them. It looks as though we're dealing with multiple cases of extraordinary survival of species. Rafkin's expression finally became more serious. Now, are you going to confide in me and tell me how you think you know this Shamaru's face? I glanced around. Aiela was intent. She continued to study me, curiosity and wonder in her eyes. Shamino appeared to be impassive, but I could see from his eyes that he was distressed. Jimmy never met my eyes. He was scribbling as fast as he could, trying to keep up with all the details discussed. I sighed, regretting the necessity of discussing this with Malone around. Yeah, that's right. But gave in. There was no telling when possession of the facts might save a life, perhaps even mine. I told you that I occasionally do favors for a foreign dignity who goes by the name of Lord British. That's true. I sort of led you to believe that he was European, that his name was a code name, but that's not true. Well, it actually is true. If you read the beginning of the manual in Ultima 5, it talks about how he crosses over into the other world, and that's also discussed in Ultima 7. British lives in a world he calls Britannia. I like to think of it as a distant reflection of our own world. I get the impression from his choice of names and other clues that he's had some contact with our world, but I've never gotten the whole story out of him. I've been to Britannia several times, always traveling there in a moon gate, a portal. What you saw in your lab today was a sort of moon gate, but a very twisted and alien one. I've never seen one like that before, and don't know why it behaved like that, or why it brought us here instead of to Britannia. Shamino, who's a dead ringer for Shamaru here, is a friend of mine in Britannia. It's disturbing to see him here like this minus his memory, assuming that Shamaru is Shamino, that is. Shamaru's eyes flickered every time his name, or either of his names, was spoken. There is some extraordinary in things he said. There's some cooperation in things he said, Rafkin admitted reluctantly, but it still is a peculiar story. It's even stranger if you've lived through it listening. I'm not asking you to believe it. It's probably better if you just forget you ever heard it. But you asked, and you deserve the truth. Later on, if you decide to institutionalize me, just give me a head start, I grinned. They'll never find me. I glanced again at Aiela, caught her steady gaze. Professor, in the time you've been talking to people, have you figured out, do I have any sort of rights to sleep with Aiela for helping to do I have any sort of responsibility for Aiela by helping to save her? Rafkin grinned, quickly suppressed it while I glanced back at him. Are you afraid of this or hoping for it? Don't answer that. A rhetorical barb. No, I don't get the impression that obligations of that sort is one of their customs. She has repeatedly expressed her gratitude to us, particularly to you. Obviously not the type of gratitude you are interested in, and she's very curious about you. I have a feeling that you'll need to take a crash course in their language if ever you're to speak to her alone, which is obviously what she wants. I nodded. Tell her. I was interrupted by a strange chirping cry from the forest. Two warriors stood, and one raised a hand to his lips and issued a similar cry. Others whispered quickly to one another. Rafkin spoke briefly with Aiela and turned back to us. One of the scouts, the professor informed us, he's alerting us about a beast, something they call a shieldback. I think I have to see this. He rose and again Aiela spoke with him. Disappointed, he said, She says it's a leaf-eater, that it won't come near the fire or men. Poor thing, Jimmy intoned. Maybe Santa will stick a dinosaur in your Christmas stocking. Okay, one amusing thing that Jimmy has said. Rafkin glared. Jimmy laughed, and a native out in the jungle screamed. In an instant we were all standing, the natives catching up their spears and bows. Out just beyond the edge of the fire there was a woof-woof noise, like a bull breathing, impossibly loudly. Then our phantom bull moved into the light. This shieldback was a reptile, long, broad, and flat, with a knobbly back, something like a horned toad of the southwest, but enormous. The thing was larger than a luxury car. It was no fake, no special effect. It was alive and lumbering towards us. As it passed further into the light, we caught sight of the things trailing from its mouth and across its back. They were something like vines, something like ropes. They were, in fact, reins, Rafkin breathed. He was right. On its back was the silhouette of a man, a huge, broad-shouldered man the size of an NFL defensive lineman. Jealous much, dude? Aiela shouted words of command, and I understood one, Dardan. Dardan, her thwarted suitor, Dardan, the enemy chief. Dardan yelled a reply, a basso profundo roar. So pretentious. It was answered by more war cries from the forest. There were more men, Dardan's men, in the jungle. They moved in quickly, forming a line in front of the lizard he rode. Aiela's men wavered, dread in their eyes, dread of the kind of man who could command a giant reptile. The kind of dread is fatal, and I knew it. Before my common sense could catch up to my instincts, I grabbed a spear from an inert Kurak warrior and shoved my way through the Kurak line, shouting a wild Britannian war cry. The attackers expected an easy victory. Perhaps they counted on the Kuraks being afraid of the reptile and its rider. I charged up to them before they realized they were wrong. The first warrior I faced was I tried a simple thrust. I slid his point out of line and put my own into him, a brutal thrust into the center of his chest. He hit the ground hard. These jungle men recover fast. I was surrounded by a dozen hard-eyed men with spears. I went on the defensive, parried one thrust, blocked another, and kicked its wielder hard in the side of the head. I had the satisfaction of hearing the joint crack. Oh, kicked him hard in the knee, not the head. Sorry. Seeing the warrior collapse with a cry of pain. Then the Kuraks woke up. A shower of Kurak arrows rained into my enemies. Dardan's warriors fell back. Aiela's spearmen came up on either side of me, forming a line, while Aiela's archers prepared another volley. Had it been just their warriors against ours, we could have scattered them back into the jungle. But while I took down 2 warriors and were joined by Aiela's men, the muscle-bound monster named Dardan was bringing his riding lizard up to speed. The reptile hit its stride. Dardan yanked on its reins, harshly pulling its head towards us. The giant lizard slewed over in our direction, came within 20 feet of us, 15. There was no way Aiela's warriors could hold the line against 4 tons of charging meat and bone. I opened my mouth to call for the line to break, to surround the shield back and fall on it from the sides, but I never got the chance. I saw the hurtling spear out of the corner of my eye. I tried to twist out of its way, but was only partially successful. The stone head grazed my temple, stunning me, staggering me back. I could only watch as the reptile charged forward, still picking up speed, slamming through the line of Kurak warriors, scattering and crushing them. I was still dizzy. My legs wouldn't move. I watched helplessly as Dardan jerked his head around to orient on me, one step closer to. Its head was almost upon me. I saw the cold, amused laughter in the eyes of Dardan, saw his handsome features twisted in a broad smile of victory. But I didn't see the blow that put me down. The lizard's leg must have clipped me. All I knew is that I was flat on my back, smashed once again against a tree, slumped down at its base. I should have passed out then. I might as well have been unconscious. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't even tell if I was still breathing, but I could still see. I saw Dardan and his mount draw abreast of Aiela as she stood with her bow at the ready, aiming straight and true at his throat. I knew he was a dead man, but I was wrong. Behind Aiela crept up another stealthy Urali warrior. He swung the shaft of his spear against her head. She collapsed, and her shot went wild. I couldn't see Dardan's grin then, but I knew he still wore it, and it broadened and became even more triumphant as the warrior handed Aiela's inert form up to him. My last sight was of the shield back and its precious cargo lumbering out into the night. Then darkness closed down on me. I fell into unconsciousness as deep and dark as a well. Next issue, Chapter 2, Strange Reunions, which is when we will be beginning the actual game, finally. So that was the manual, and so this is the end of that. So finally, until next time, everyone, bye!